Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing the posters on your wall, the movies you love, the songs on the radio, and even the cartoons your kids watch were all designed to shape what you believe, who you fear, and who you're willing to fight. During wartime, Americans didn't just fight enemies overseas. They fought a battle for the American mind right here at home. And the most powerful weapon wasn't a gun. It was propaganda. Today, I'm Clyde Chester, and this is History of United States. This is the story of how propaganda quietly shaped American opinions, fueled patriotism, silenced dissent, and changed everyday life during wartime, often without Americans even realizing it. Because once you see it, you'll never look at war the same way again. America's wars were never fought by soldiers alone. From living rooms to movie theaters, from classrooms to factory floors, wartime propaganda transformed ordinary Americans into believers, workers, and sometimes even silencers of doubt. This episode explores how the U.S. government, media, artists, and corporations shaped public opinion during major American wars using fear, hope, patriotism, and persuasion. These are the forgotten micro-histories behind the posters, films, slogans, and songs that helped define the American wartime experience. Before we dive into World War I posters and Cold War films, let's clear something up. In the United States, propaganda didn't always sound like a dirty word. The term simply meant organized persuasion, guiding public opinion toward a national goal. But Americans believed something powerful, that propaganda was what dictators used, not democracies. And that belief made propaganda in the U.S. far more subtle and far more effective. Instead of orders, Americans were given stories. Instead of commands, they were offered symbols. Instead of force, they were guided by emotion. And it started early. When the U.S. entered World War I in 1917, most Americans didn't want the war. President Woodrow Wilson faced a serious problem. How do you convince a peace-loving nation to send its sons overseas? The answer came in the form of a brand new government agency. Led by journalist George Creel, the CPI became America's first modern propaganda machine. Its mission? Sell the war to the American people. And they sold it everywhere. One of the most fascinating microhistories, over 75,000 volunteers were trained to give 4-minute speeches, the length of a film reel change. They spoke in movie theaters, churches, town halls, baseball games. Their message was simple: America is good, the enemy is evil. You must do your part. This wasn't force. This was peer pressure wrapped in patriotism. Posters that changed how Americans saw war. World War I posters didn't show complex geopolitics, German soldiers as beasts, America as a righteous defender, enlistment as a moral duty. One of the most famous images, Uncle Sam pointing directly at you. That poster didn't ask, it accused, and Americans responded. Propaganda didn't just target enemies overseas, it also reshaped who counted as American. During World War I, German-language newspapers were shut down, schools stopped teaching German, sauerkraut became Liberty cabbage. German Americans were viewed with suspicion. The message was clear: if you're not loudly patriotic, you might be the enemy. And this pattern would repeat. By World War II, propaganda evolved and Hollywood became its most powerful ally. President Franklin Roosevelt understood something crucial. Americans trust stories more than speeches. So the U.S. government partnered with Disney, Warner Brothers, and MGM. Disney produced cartoons portraying Nazis as ridiculous villains, Japanese soldiers as racial caricatures, American troops as heroic underdogs. These cartoons weren't just entertainment, they were training the emotional instincts of a generation. Kids learned who to hate, Adults learned who to trust. Legendary director Frank Capra created a documentary series shown to soldiers and civilians. Its purpose? Convince Americans that this war was necessary, moral, and unavoidable. It framed the conflict as democracy versus tyranny, good versus evil, freedom versus darkness. Complex realities were stripped away, clarity replaced nuance, and morale skyrocketed. Here's where the story gets uncomfortable. After Pearl Harbor, propaganda fueled fear and suspicion towards Japanese Americans. Despite no evidence of mass disloyalty, over 120,000 Japanese Americans were interned. Most were U.S. citizens. Families lost homes, businesses, dignity. Posters, newspapers, and radio broadcasts framed them as potential threats hiding in plain sight. This wasn't accidental. It was manufactured fear. And it shows propaganda's darkest power, making injustice feel justified. After World War II, America didn't stop using propaganda. It changed targets. Now the enemy wasn't a country, it was an idea: communism. American children watched films teaching them how to hide from nuclear bombs, why communists were everywhere, and why America was the world's protector. Duck and cover wasn't just safety advice, it was psychological conditioning. Fear became normal. Cold War propaganda sold a lifestyle: suburban homes, nuclear families, consumer abundance. The message? This is what freedom looks like. Anything outside that image felt suspicious. Vietnam marked a turning point. For the first time, television showed uncensored war footage. Journalists questioned official narratives. Americans saw contradictions daily. The government said, "We're winning." The TV showed body bags, burning villages, protests. Propaganda lost credibility. And once Americans stopped believing, the war was already lost. Here's the real lesson. Propaganda didn't disappear, it evolved. Today, it lives in social media narratives, political branding, algorithm-driven outrage, emotional headlines. The techniques are the same: simplify, emotionalize, divide, repeat. The battlefield is still the mind. America's wartime propaganda wasn't always evil. Sometimes it unified. Sometimes it inspired sacrifice. Sometimes it helped defeat real tyranny. But it also silenced dissent, fueled fear, justified injustice. Understanding propaganda doesn't make you unpatriotic. It makes you aware. And awareness is the most American trait of all. I'm Clyde Chester, and this has been History of United States. If this story made you think, share it, because history doesn't just live in textbooks, it lives in what we believe.